What's happening, people? Welcome back to the channel and to the podcast. It's Harry Scarfe here, and I'm joined by the wonderful Dan ahead of Tottenham versus Wycombe. Firstly, Dan, how are you doing? And talk to people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Um, so I'm Dan Clark. I am mainly on the Heroes of HP12 podcast for Wycombe Wanderers, which I'm pretty sure to being two leagues below, yeah, we probably your fans haven't heard of us, but yeah, we record weekly. So alongside that, I'm a trust director as well. So nice mixed bag of things, and we also help coordinate the 1887 fan group that we have, which we designate flags going and all that kind of stuff. So if you watch the Sky Sports EFL advert that's come out recently, our flags are all over that. So we're a bit happy about that. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell, really.
Oh, fantastic stuff. You're doing some really important work. So thank you for giving up your time. 'Cause you're a
Wow.
busy man.
Doing some work. Doing some work. It's for something we love, it's exactly the same as you doing this. We do it for the club we love, don't we? So
We absolutely do. We wouldn't swap it, would we, for anything else? So
yeah.
that's all you need to know. But thank you very much for joining me today. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please do drop us a follow and a 5-star review. Apologies that this will be going out quite late, before the game, because I will say though, it's a little bit on both clubs because we didn't know this was going to happen going into the start of the week. So this was dropped to us last minute as an additional pre-season game. Dan, let's get straight into it. I want to do firstly like a pre-season kind of check-in so far. It's been a mixed pre-season for you. You've lost one, you've won one, and then you've drawn one last time out. What would be your overall thoughts on what you've seen in pre-season?
Um, I never take pre-season too seriously, to be honest. I mean, if we look last season, we ended up being top of the league and on an amazing, like massive unbeaten run for ages. And our pre-season was really bad. We lost to Notts County, we drew with teams like Ellsbury United, so that wasn't too good. This time round, especially the last couple of games, we've looked a lot sharper. We beat Cheltenham 3-0 and we drew 1-1 against Barnet. But um, because we've gone through a bit of a transition since January, we've got a new manager who's trying to kind of implement his style of play. And I think probably, we've had quite a few behind closed doors games over previous seasons and things like that. But I think this is another good opportunity because our season starts the week after on the 2nd of August. It's a good opportunity for our manager to kind of embed his style of play, especially with some of the players that might not necessarily have much game time over the preseason friendlies, just to kind of get those final few minutes in, because match sharpness from day one, especially if we're going to be challenging for promotion this season, we need as many players as sharp and as fit as possible. So really important for us, and obviously for you guys as well. Similar kind of circumstances in a way. You've gone through a massive change. You've got Frank coming in. This is a good opportunity for players that might not play against Luton later on in the day to have a go and get some fitness and get some minutes in their legs.
Yeah, we will get onto the game like in more detail a little bit later. But I was going to ask you, and you've answered it there, just about how important this is for both teams. I think, in particular, you, if I'm honest, in terms of how close your season is to start. But I think also for us, new manager as well, and just to get to play more players, give them more minutes in the tank, it's really important. So it makes sense. Those last minute, I looked at it and thought, what, playing twice in one day? But it makes sense when you look at it a little bit more. Can I ask you who you think's been your standout in preseason training that you've seen or heard, or in your games so far? It could be more than one, maybe.
Yeah, we've had a right mixed bag. I think, as I say, we're two leagues below you, but I don't think there'll be a Spurs fan that won't know about Richard Kone, who is our talismanic striker still at 21. Come up through non-leagues. We signed him from Athletic Newham in the Essex Senior League, so it's a bit closer around your way. But he's just been instrumental. We thought he might have played his last game in the playoff semi against Charlton at the end of last season, but he's stuck around. He's dug in. He looks stronger than he did even last year. And he's come in and he scored 2 on Saturday and he scored again on Tuesday. So really, really promising that he's kind of, hit the ground running, hit a bit of form. But whether we'll see him in a Wycombe shirt beyond, the transfer deadline will remains to be seen. But it's nice to see him. We've had a new keeper come in as well, who was a youth keeper at Man City. Mickey Van Sass, he's come from Feyenoord. He's looking good from a distribution perspective as well, which is exactly what we're looking for. We're looking to play out from the back a bit more. So, we seem to have signed players that are going to suit our style of play a bit more. And especially, as I say, we're going through that transition period as well. I think the interesting thing for us as well is that we've gone through a massive change in our defensive line. So last season, we had Caleb Taylor, who was at West Brom. He's gone back to West Brom, and I reckon he'll be around Championship, lower Prem in the years to come. He'll be very good. So, one to look out for with him. And then our other defender, Joe Lowe, has gone to Huddersfield. So obviously one of our promotion rivals. So, we've had to completely change around our defensive line, but we've brought in Taylor Allen, who was League Two with Walsall, their player of the season last year. So, fantastic kind of pedigree with him. But we've got a couple from Scotland as well that have come in. So it's promising. It looks good. But we've got to gel. I think that's the key. When you got such a change around, you've got to gel.
And that takes time, doesn't it? That's the thing. You want to see a quick start to season, up and firing, but sometimes it just takes that. Or even with Premier League clubs, you see, Nottingham Forest is a good example, Chelsea, whoever it may be, that sign a lot of players at once. It just takes a while. Or big changes as well at the top of the club. Like my club, Tottenham, Thomas Frank comes in, lots of changes on the board, on and off the pitch. It's not going to click with game one. We're not going to be in that, for me, whatever it be, top 4, top 6 battle, in the first few weeks. I think we're going to grow into it. So no surprise with that. I've got to ask the
Doing worse than
question.
last season, did you?
No, exactly. Surely not. I mean, the bar's set low. I mean, I absolutely take the trophy, but in the league, 100%, it can't get any worse, or can it? I hope not. But I've got to ask the question: is there anything you've been disappointed with in pre-season so far? Maybe individuals, or any disappointments, or is it all like looking good for you?
Do you know what? It's one of those where it's not 100% positive because, as you say, we're going through such a change at the moment. There's a new style of play that's being implemented. We're preparing ourselves for the championship, and that comes with a different mentality. It comes with a different style of play, and it comes with different types of players as well. I'm sure we'll talk about the transfers in a bit, but I think the one thing that we've kind of got to be aware of is that we're really, as you say, it's not going to come straight away, and I think we've all got lots of fickle football fans. We're all fickle football fans in that we want immediate results, and that doesn't happen. It takes a while. We've got to acknowledge it's going to take, maybe 8-9 games just to kind of get into the run of things. But the foundations are set for us. So I wouldn't say there's anything I'm disappointed with. It's just kind of we've got to remain balanced at this point in time. I think because we're really pushing for promotion, we want to be in the championship next season. I think the expectations are a lot higher. So I think it's maybe, we've got a lot of our fan base that are very panicky, when we're drawing 1-1 with Barnet, but Barnet beat Leyton Orient 2-0 on the Saturday before. So you got to take pre-season friendly with a pinch of salt, really, and just make sure people got, minutes in their legs and they're raring to go.
Exactly that. I view pre-season as like a useful tool almost, but it's not season defining. It's not going to define your success. It's just going to prepare you ahead for the season. So, as you said,
Exactly.
a lot of clubs have a very good pre-season, then struggle in the season. So it's not a true reflection of where you are, although it's handy. So now I think that's
Yes.
a good point that you do make. Interesting, maybe question here that might get you thinking a little bit, and I don't expect you to necessarily have an answer for it, but is there anything you think you should have done differently? Like maybe with the manager's lineups or substitutions in game management, or maybe just like the preseason schedule as a whole, like, oh, we should have played this team from here, or like, if you could change anything now looking back on how your preseasons may be structured, would you change anything?
Yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one for us because we've gone through a massive pitch regeneration over the summer.
All
So
right.
pitch has been replaced quite a large amount of money. So usually, we'd have a few home friendlies, but we've been away, and obviously the games that we play against you, for example, or Brighton, who we played earlier on behind closed doors in pre-season, that would have been a home game. It would have been nice as fans for us to be able to see a bit more. But obviously, we've had to go away for that, so it's been a bit more limited. I think that's
Mm.
the only thing really from our perspective is that it gives us a chance to kind of get excited about the new signings a bit more, and that kind of thing. But it's one of those that we can't, it's just a victim of the fact that we've got this new pitch coming in. So in terms of the style of play and everything else, we're still waiting to kind of see how that will look, what the vision is. You can't really judge that over 3 or 4 games. Um, you know, and especially as the players are kind of adapting to a new mentality, new way of playing, and new level of physicality as well, and a lot of new faces coming in. It's one of those where you expect transition. So I do, at least. I like to think I'm quite a balanced fan.
Yeah,
There's quite a few on Twitter, as we all know, with fans of all clubs that aren't exactly the
indeed.
same kind of level of patience.
Mm.
Um, it's a good time. It's interesting. Just for me, it matters when we go out against Bradford away, August 2nd. So see how that goes.
Yeah, exactly. That pre-season isn't, as I said before, defining. It's about the season, and even that, is you want to start well, but if you don't, there's still plenty of time to recover, and you learn things as well. More games you go along. You can't, you know what people like, and whether it be your supporters, our supporters, any club, if let's say you lose first game of the season, all of a sudden, oh my god, it's gonna be the worst season ever. It's just that reactionary, as you said. There's no patience, is there,
No, not
whatsoever?
at all.
Oh dear. Um, let's move on to the season as a whole and what it looks like. How are you feeling about the new season? Talk about it sounds quite exciting listening to you. Are you excited?
I'm excited. Yeah, I mean, so just to kind of set a bit of context for the club, really, we've always been a smaller side. Came up from the conference back in the early 90s into the league for the first time, and we've slowly built ourselves up as the plucky underdogs. I mean, it won't take long for Spurs fans to remember maybe our 4-3 game at White Hart Lane, where we were 3-2 up in the 87th minute before Son got a couple of goals later on. It's we've always been the plucky underdogs. We've hit um, FA Cup semi-finals, we've hit Carling Cup semi-finals and things like that. So always kind of overachieved. Been in the Championship during the COVID years as well, things like that. So we've gone from a transition now where we've got owners who have really invested a lot of money into the infrastructure, into a new academy for us. They want to be a Cat One academy, so it's quite serious intentions really. And we've gone from being a small club to a club that's paying money and decent money for players to challenge. So it's an interesting time for us. So I'm optimistic for the season. Um, it just remains to be seen as to whether Mike Dodds, who, you know, his experience from a coaching perspective, but from a managerial point of view, we don't know yet. We've got to give him a chance, same as we did with Matt Bloomfield, who's now at Luton. He struggled to start with, then something clicked, and we went on a massive run and nearly got promoted last season. So he left in January. So we've got to look at that, give him a chance. But I think the pressure's on, maybe more so than it has been for previous managers in previous years.
Dan, thank you for the context there. It's really useful. And again, it sounds like an exciting time at the club and sounds like you've got owners that care and interested and have invested, which is what you want as a fan of any club. So, wish that for you anyway, keeps going, and I wish you all the best for this season. And you kind of led me on nicely to my next couple of questions, I suppose. And that is, what are your hopes and expectations for Wycombe this season? Is promotion possible or even expected?
Well, promotion's possible without a doubt. Level of players that we're buying, it's unusual for us because we're buying players from Basel, Feyenoord. Bit like the Championship model. You see a lot of clubs that buy players that we might not have necessarily heard of that are doing wonders in these European leagues, and we're doing similar now. So it's a bit unusual for us. Um, Whether it's expected by a lot of our fans, especially. We've been in playoffs 3 times in the last 5 years. Had a championship season in the mix between that as well. So being up and around there is kind of expected. And I think that's when I said earlier, there's a bit more pressure maybe on Mike Dodds than there might be previous managers, is because I think this season we're expected to kick on and improve on what we did last season. We know we're capable. Um, whether or not we can live up to that expectation and manage the hype is another question.
It's hard, easier said than done. You have the best
Mm.
squad on paper and best plan, but it's about putting it into action. It's a long season as well. A lot can happen. You get an injury crisis like that or something unexpected. So yeah, it's a lot harder to say, isn't it? Whether you're going to get promoted or not. All you can do is, make sure you're in and around that race. But who do you think will be a key player for Wycombe this campaign?
Well, if we can keep hold of him, it will be Richard Kone. Guy scored 18 goals for us in the league last season. And he's absolutely phenomenal. And we hear rumours of clubs like West Ham going in 12 million for him and things like that. So, if that is the case, if we can keep hold of him, we know he's been looked at by Premier League clubs, by clubs in Europe. So he will be the one. Otherwise, at the moment, can't really tell you. We've got a whole new nucleus of a squad, and it's been a massive change. I mean, we brought in a lad called Alex Lowry from Rangers, who was highly touted at Rangers to go far and be, quite a club legend for them. But we managed to get him on a undisclosed fee back in January, and he, in terms of creativity, seems absolutely phenomenal. We saw him in a few games last season, but obviously bedding in, coming down from Scotland as a young lad, and kind of coming to the south of England, it's a bit of a transition. And I think one thing that we like as a club is that we don't kind of chuck them in the deep end as such. We do nurture players to kind of bed in and get within the social groups and make it feel more of a community and make sure that they're ready to go before they come out on the pitch. But he seems to be featuring a lot more in pre-season now, so I'm kind of excited to see what he does as a number 10. But apart from that, it's don't know what to expect, and I think that's quite exciting in some ways.
It is, and hopefully the goals you always want to be shared out. But you mentioned there Richard Kone and reported like interest in West Ham. You mentioned again, I think was it around 12 million? You said,
Yeah,
would
it's
it?
rumored, so it's rumors
Yeah,
though, isn't it? It could be
but
anything.
let's pretend it is real. What would there be a price that you would cash in for? Like if you put your head, like if you're in that Wickham situation, is there a price where you go, okay, we've got to listen or we've got to accept this?
Right, so a bit of context again. Our record transfer fee sold is Anis Mehmeti to Bristol City for 1 million. So
There
anything
you
that he
go.
goes for is huge. Um, he's on his last year, so that's a concern for us because we don't want to let him go for free. So we're in a bit of conundrum now as to whether we sell him now and we sell him and get a good amount of money in, or whether we keep him. And if we keep him, personally, what I'd want him to do is sign for 1 more year, but with a minimum release clause for the amount that they're willing to let him go, so that he either goes for that amount or we've got him for another year, and at least then we can kind of play this game again this
Mm,
time next year. So, I mean, I'd be happy with a few million because that would help invest back into the squad or whatever they want to do to get us to where we need to be. But if he does go, the concern is if he goes a bit too late, have we got someone to replace him? That's the worry.
Are you a fan of the transfer window? Linking on to that, are you a fan of the transfer window, like staying open beyond the season starts? It always, for me, it always annoys me. I'm like, you don't know if your players coming or going, whether you're going to sign a player going into the season. Do you like that or not?
Yeah, it certainly makes things a bit more exciting. I'm old enough to remember
Yeah,
before the transfer window, when you could sign players all year round. And yeah, that was okay. It does bring a bit of excitement. And again, I'm old enough to remember the days of Sky Sports transfer deadline day with the yellow tie and all that kind of stuff, and watching, I don't know, it was like Mesut Ozil signing for Arsenal. Bad example for you guys, but do you know what I mean? On the last
yeah.
day and all that kind of stuff. It makes it exciting. I think it's probably been a bit ruined these days when you got your Fabrizio Romanos of the world and things like that that kind of tell you the transfer a few weeks before it's going to happen, and you're just kind of waiting for it to happen. But I like it. I don't know. It's just I guess it makes it a bit more competitive as well because you've got to get your squad ready for the season. It lets people bed in a bit more, and if a club is failing, um, yeah, it's just nice to see that mix really.
Yeah, fair enough. It certainly does allow you, as you say, to find any faults in position-wise or individuals you want to get. So yeah, it does definitely make it
Yeah.
interesting. There's no doubt about that. But as you said, the window, deadline day isn't quite the same, is it? You've got the in the knows and the experts of Fabrizio Romano, as good as they are and as useful as they
I
are for all
know.
of us knowing what's going on. It does spoil the fun a little bit, I'm afraid.
Yes. But we're under the radar a little bit, so much so Fabrizio doesn't even look at us. So we
That's
still
all
got
right
that
then.
little bit level of excitement. So
That's
until
good.
we do get mentioned by him.
Yeah, that's good. Take it while you can. Let's move on to the transfer window, which you've spoken about a little bit so far. What are your thoughts overall so far? And if it closed tonight, if I said to you, boom, transfer window slam shut, what would you rate it out of 10?
Well, I haven't seen. Do you know what? In terms of on paper, looks good. Um, we've had a very different transfer window to what we've really ever had. In the fact that our recruitment team have gone out and brought in. They've been quite astute actually because we've brought in a lot of players. We're bound by 2 ESC spaces. And in January, we signed 2 Danish players who haven't played enough time to make those spaces free again. So we've had to recruit locally in some respects, or English national, Scottish national, that kind of stuff. But what they've done is they've looked abroad because with League One and League Two, even down our leagues now, you look at Jay Stansfield going to Birmingham for £15 million last season. It's inflated the market massively. So now all these League One and League Two players that you pay relatively good money for beforehand have just got a massive inflated fee on them now. So our owners have gone out to Europe. They've gone out to other leagues to find those that are eligible to play in our league that don't take up an ESC slot, to sign them. So as I say, we're signing from Feyenoord and Basel, and it's unusual for us, but it's nice. It's a nice change, but we don't know what to expect from these players as a result.
Mm.
So it's exciting in some respects, but I'd probably give it a good 7 or 8, maybe, something like that. I think we're good at the moment. I'd like to see another centre back, and maybe another CDM, just because our mainstay CDM's got a ligament injury, so he's out for a while. But yeah, I think we've done well.
Okay. Any different names that maybe you're excited to see in action this season? Maybe someone coming through from the academy or anyone in particular, apart from the ones you mentioned?
Well, our academy is relatively new, so we've only just brought it back in. We had a load of financial trouble about 10 years ago, and unfortunately, when we were trust owned at the time, we had to close the academy down just to save as much money as possible. So the owners have only just opened it up, bringing it to Cat 4 level, which is quite interesting, and already operating at a good level. So that's really positive. But bought a lot of kind of players that have fallen through the cracks at certain clubs and things like that and brought them into the academy. So there's a couple that have already actually featured for us in pre-season friendlies, and I expect them to probably tomorrow as well. So that's a real positive for us that we've got some of our own players actually coming through now, and playing in matches for us. So expect to see a couple. Arthur Gregory, we've just signed from Worthing. He looks relatively promising, and we've got a couple of others um, who had a debut on Tuesday. So yeah, it's looking good from that point of view. But in terms of signings and things like that, I'm looking forward to seeing Taylor Allen a bit more. As I said, mentioned him, the Walsall defender. Yeah, he scores a lot of goals. Considering his position, his goal contributions is really high. So we're looking forward to that bit more creativity. So yeah, bit of a mix, but we don't know what to expect.
No, but as you said earlier, that's a wonderful thing in so many ways. If you could just pick one, maybe area of the pitch or one position to improve from now until the end of the window, just one, what would it be?
Centre back.
It
We
would be
need a
centre
bit
back,
more
yeah.
depth. Yeah, we need a bit more depth. Um, we're looking okay. We've signed a couple of players. We signed a guy called Dan Casey from Motherwell, and signed Taylor Allen as well. But I just we had 2 or 3 in that position towards the end of last season. We've lost them all. So yeah, just need strength up there, I think.
Okay, this might link in my next question. I was going to ask you: are there any Spurs youth academy players that you'd like to see on loan at Wycombe, or any players in like younger players? I'm thinking in the first team. Would it be a centre back? Maybe someone like Vuskovic.
Don't know, to be honest. It was an interesting one because we've always looked at Spurs players over the years. You've had like Troy Parrott, Dane Scarlett, Alfie Whiteman, always looked kind of good around our level. We never kind of picked anyone up. So yeah, I don't know. We don't seem to go into your academy too much. Maybe we should do.
That's interesting.
Anyone that you could suggest, maybe?
Considering your like centre back mention, well, Phillips has now gone on loan again to Stoke. I would have said Phillips, but now maybe Vuskovic, 18-year-old Croatian. He come in and got like a goal and assist within 7 minutes of his debut, so he looked really good, and a goal line clearance as well. So he looked good. He might be a good
Mm.
shout for you.
Well, we're a good hotbed for like bringing up young talent. There's a lad called
Mm,
Freddie Potts who plays for West Ham, played for us a couple of seasons ago and had a really, really good season with us. And then last season we had brought in Cam Humphreys from Ipswich as well. So both midfielders, but had a hell of a season with us, and we're fast developing a reputation for actually developing players. I mean, it's an interesting one because I think with the academy coming in now and the focus being on developing our own players, I don't think we're actually looking so much into Premier League academies much so. I mean, we've
yeah.
actually bought so Jamie Mullins, who was Brighton's captain in Premier League Two,
Mm,
we've bought him outright, whereas previous seasons we would have loaned him in. So I think if we were to go into the Spurs academy in any way, we'd actually be looking to buy, which is a crazy position for us to be in. But that's probably where we're looking. And if you're saying this Croatian lad is looking promising, I don't think you're going to be want to be selling him to us, rather than kind of developing him. So
no.
yeah,
There are probably some that you could do where you get like a loan with an option or an obligation to buy. Maybe someone like an Alfie Devine or someone like that. If I'm
that would
thinking
be
out
nice.
loud,
Yeah. I didn't
yeah,
know Alfie Devine was still with you, actually. Yeah, I mean
yeah, just
that's
a
a
yeah.
promising one because he's very talented, isn't he? So
Mm.
yeah,
But yeah, there's not many. You're right. If you say that if it's not just the loans, because there's a lot of players that we've got that look good but aren't quite ready. But that doesn't work, as you say, for you when you've got the academy. But I think it's a nice position to be in, to know you don't have to rely on other big clubs to feed you kind of players when they're not quite ready. I think that's a nice position to be in. So it sounds like you've got a good trajectory, if you
yes.
like. Let's move on to the game itself and a little bit about Tottenham. So, firstly, how do you rate Tottenham's chances under Thomas Frank this season? What do you make of him and the appointment as well?
I think it's a smart appointment for you. I really do. Um, it's a bit of a weird one. I've always been an Ange Postecoglou fan, to be honest. So I like his manner and I like how he approaches things. And I did feel he was a little bit hard done by after you picked up the Europa League. I get it because look, if Southampton, Ipswich, Leicester hadn't had that bad a season, you guys would have been down based on the amount of points that you had last season. And that, for a club of Spurs size, the stadium you got, the quality of players you got is just not acceptable at all. So I understand it. I think Frank's a good appointment. He's a solid appointment. And I think I'd rate you to do well. I've always had a soft spot for Spurs. My brothers all support Spurs, so I always do
Oh, oh,
keep a
nice.
lookout for you guys. But it's yeah, I'd like to see you do well. It's nice to see you win Europa League last year. Um, it's a lot of pressure. Obviously, since Kane's gone, it's been one of those where you've got to kind of replace. How do you replace someone like Harry Kane who's been there for as many years as he has? So it's a difficult one, and Heung-min Son's coming to the end of his career slightly. Next few years or so, and things like that. You've got a major shift, but I think you've got someone there who has been quite pragmatic with how he's spent money, how he's recruited, the people he's brought in, the approach that he takes to games as well. I think he's a good appointment. I mean, you've had a right range of managers over the last few years. If you look at Conte
Yeah,
and Mourinho, have been quite inflammatory. You're going from someone like that to someone who's relatively calm and calculated with how he does things. So it's going to be a very interesting change for you, I think.
Do you think you have like better in-game management than Ange Postecoglou, more tactical flexibility? Because I totally agree with you about Ange. I liked him too, but one thing you could say about him is, he's down that hill, stick to his tactics. There's no flexibility, there's no like adaptability. Whereas Frank tends to change his system, doesn't he, in formation a lot in game.
Yeah, I think the thing is as well when you look at Ange's background, and not to sound negative, because J League is a decent league, but then when you're coming from Celtic and Scottish Premiership, you're only really kind of counting the big. As long as you beat the big games for Rangers, everything else is pretty much smooth sailing. So tactically, you can kind of stick to your guns a bit more because your only adaptation is just making sure you don't lose to Rangers. That's not to sound bad at the Scottish Premier League. There's a
It's
lot of
true
good
though.
other
Yeah,
talent
it's
up
true.
there as well. But that's generally the case for Celtic.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got Thomas Frank, who's had a good few seasons in the Premier League. He knows not only to survive, but actually to do well with minimal resource. And not to say, you have minimal resource, because you've got a lot of good resource there. It'd be interesting to see what he does with that. But you've got someone who's experienced in the Premier League, knows how to manage a season like that. I think, as I say, I think it's sound, and I think he's got the right personality for you at the time when you need it.
Yeah, okay, that's good to hear. Thank you. Coming from an outside perspective, it's good because we're at the moment. I think a lot of Spurs fans feel the same. Little hypothetical here. Let's forget money, pretend it didn't exist, which would be nice in a way. If you could steal one Spurs player for Wycombe, who would it be and why?
One Spurs player, forget money, it's got to be Son, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
he's a leader and he's a nice guy. And things as well, and what we've quite liked about this window is we've always done the personality test at Wycombe. So it's not only, can they play football and can they do a job in the level that we're playing at? It's, do they match the personality? And he does. That he fits into kind of our mold very nicely. And it'd just be fantastic as well because he's such a good player. He's always generally, banging them in and or contributing towards something. And he's a leader on the pitch, and that's what you want.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. This one might be a little bit harder. I don't know if there's anyone that even fits the question, but this time, bearing in mind money, if you could swap one player from each team, so just bear that in mind, who would it be and why?
Well, you're saying swap one player. That's me trying to get rid of one player to my club. Do you want
Mm.
someone good? That's the question.
That's the problem. That's quite tough, that one. When I was writing the question, I did think about it. I thought, who would it be? And I found it really hard because, like, without money, it might be a little bit easier. But the reason I've done with money is you'd probably just say Son and swap with whoever's on your left hand side. But if we do it where you bear in mind money, someone on lower wage, maybe lower fee.
Yeah, well, this
It's
is it. I
hard.
mean, yeah, you're gonna have to if you're going for money on that money basis. We're talking about Richard Coney and the money that he's touted to go for. That's probably
Mm.
going to at least, you know, challenge something. He would get something from him. But Kone, obviously, from a striker's perspective, you need a striker, don't you? Really. So, um,
Mm.
never know from that perspective. Don't even know who we'd replace with. For me, it would be an up and coming young player. We'd need to replace him with a striker. So any strikers that are doing a job in the PL2, really.
Uh, Yeah, well, I think Will Lancashire might be a good shout to go
Yeah.
out the box from a Dane Scarlett, obviously sold Parrot now. Lancashire looks good though. I think he just probably need another loan. But if it wasn't to do with identical position, I'd say someone like Ben Davies, who's been linked with Wrexham before, I think would take quite a big pay cut, would be a big fee at all. Brian Gill as well. I think will take a wage cut, and we're looking for about 8-9 million now, which is, don't get me wrong, still a lot, but in terms of the squad, there's a lot less. So it's hard, especially the same position as well. I think that's a
Yeah.
proper horrible question, to be honest.
That's all right. I think we did okay on that one.
Yeah, I think we did. We got through it. This one might be a little, I don't know, it's easier. We'll see. I'll put it to you. If Wickham could copy one thing from Spurs besides money, what would it be? It could be like in terms of infrastructure or model or anything like stadium.
Yeah, I watched the All Access series. Your training ground's nice, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
we've improved ours over the summer. We've significantly improved ours, but yours is another level. I always love looking at the training grounds when you watch these documentaries because you just think, bloody hell, the facilities that are there, really, really
Carpet.
impressive. Yeah, exactly. That I think that's probably about right. I mean, your stadium is something fantastic as well. To be fair, to go from a stadium like White Hart Lane, which, had such a good feel about it, it was a nice old stadium feel, wasn't it? To go
Mm,
to something like that, which actually, it's a stadium that you can just have for tens of years and it will still stand the test of time. That yellow wall kind of esque stand that you've
yeah.
got as well. That's nice. We'd like that with our terrace behind the goal, but you know, we're in the Chilterns and we don't have that much space, so probably not as high as yours, but would be nice.
No, it would be nice. Again, hypothetical, quite fun. Who do you think is under more pressure this season, Wycombe or Spurs?
It's what's going to be Spurs, isn't it? The amount of money that you guys would get in a Premier League season and everything else, and the fact that obviously, even though you've got your Europa League win coming off the back of a season like that last season where you were as far down as you were, the pressure to be up there, because generally you would expect Spurs to be in and around the top four. That's a massive improvement from last season. Um, and if you're not buying many players, that's a mentality shift. So that's a big. I mean, obviously, changing the regime a bit with bringing Frank in is going to do that. That's a big mentality shift from these players, and that's a lot. That's a lot of expectation as well. And obviously, the pressure to get things right at the start is going to be huge here because if
Yeah,
it doesn't, they go straight away. They're going to go, "Oh, not so good." From our perspective, we want to get promotion, 100%, but League One's quite open this year, so we're kind of expecting everything to be quite. Yeah, everyone's beating each other. So there's an opportunity to grow. And if you take an example, Leighton Orient last season, December the 21st or December around Christmas Eve time, they were 21st. They were languishing near relegation, and they got
yeah.
us the playoff final. So you can change a season around in half season if you play it right. So we've got a bit more maneuverability. I think the Premier League's a bit harder in that respect.
It is. I think Crystal Palace is a good example of that, and that's why I asked you the question
Mm,
about the transfer window. They had lots of players; their future was uncertain. I think it was Elise, Eze, Mark Gahey. The only one who left, I think, was Elise to Bayern in the end, and they were rock bottom when that window shut. But then, come
mm,
the end of the season, they didn't get it, but pushed in for a top half finish, and they got 12th, a solid 12th as well in the end. So, as you say, in the Premier League, you can turn it around, but not quite as much because they went on like an incredible one in 2025. But it wasn't enough still to get them in that top half. So, it's an interesting point you do make. What's something
mm.
you think that Wycombe does maybe better than Premier League clubs? I'm thinking like top six clubs, including clubs like Spurs.
It's an interesting one that we've always maintained a sense of community, which has been a bit harder to manage. To be fair, now we've got a bit more money coming in and all these massive developments and things like that. It's a bit harder to kind of maintain that element of community. But we've always very much been a family club. So I'm board director for the Supporters Trust, and we look after the volunteers at the club. So we still have people that come in on a weekday to give up their time to maintain the ground because we own the ground and look after all those things. And you know, it's fantastic that we still have that because it makes it still feel like it's the club for our town, and that's that's
Mm,
that's a really nice feeling. I think sometimes with the Premier League, it's very corporate, and obviously there seems to be a push towards Americanizing it a bit more, and I
yeah,
think that's such a shame because it's losing that very much that community and that English identity that we used to have,
yeah,
20, 30 years ago. Beyond that,
yeah. Totally agree with you on that. I think well said. On to the match itself. Do you feel confident, would you say, considering you played more preseason games and you might be a little bit sharper nearer to the start of your season?
well, I'm intrigued to see how you're set up, to be honest, because obviously you've got the game against Luton and that's in front of some fans. So I expect you'll probably take some of your bigger players down to Kenilworth Road. But I I'm quite fine with that. I mean, our main focus really is just making sure that our match sharpness is looking better. We took a very, very small squad to Barnet on Tuesday, um, smaller than we expected. The subs bench was only your standard bench rather than 12 or 13 players as you might usually bring on. So what I want to see from us is actually playing some of those players that haven't had as much game time in the
Mm.
friendlies, making sure that they're sharp because in a recent interview, Mike Dodds has said that what he doesn't want just a starting 11 and that's it. If they're not in the starting 11 for Bradford, doesn't mean they're not featuring. It means that we're going to mix and rotate, so that we've got that level of depth there. So if we're going to do that, we need to play the players that weren't playing before. So I'm not expecting too much. As I say, we played Brighton behind closed doors, and they played like Danny Welbeck scored like 4 or something crazy like that. So they played their full squad. So don't know what to kind of expect. I'm not really paying attention to the scoreline. I think as long as the facets of what he's trying to do in terms of style of play and everything come through, and do what we need to do ahead of next week, then that's all I care about.
Okay. What are you hoping to see from Wycombe, should I say, in this friendly against Spurs? Talk about maybe using the players that didn't feature. Is there anything else you'd like to see that maybe give you confidence?
Yeah, I think it's the style of play that we kind of expect to see in the first game. We've seen that in the first half quite a bit of the two, especially Cheltenham and Barnet. We saw first half we came racing out the blocks, we looked really good. Um, you know, uh, Barnet we went 1-0 up very early on. Cheltenham we scored 2 in the first half and looked really sharp. And then things changed around in the second half and we slowed down a bit, allowed them to come into it a bit more. Obviously, Barnet equalised on Tuesday. So, actually, looking at game management, longer term game management in the second half, that'd be interesting to see how that's managed because obviously that'll be key for us. Come the start of the season. So that's the crux of it. Really, is just making sure that actually, in terms of our ideologies, we're set up right.
Okay, yeah, I think it's really important, isn't it? I mean, if you can have all the best players we talked about before, best plan and best idea, but you haven't got a style of play, you're left a bit stuck, aren't you? So that's really an important thing. Do you see this as more of a fitness exercise or a tactical test or an opportunity to make a statement?
I think it's the first two. I think it's fitness and I think it's tactical. We've obviously put this in quickly, so I think it was just we need one more just to make sure we're kind of right ahead of next week. And I think, as I say, because we took less players to Barnet, I think it's a good opportunity. We've got a lot of players that missed out that game that could do with some time. So yeah, hopefully they feature. I think that'll be very interesting to see the lineup because as soon as the lineup comes in, we'll be able to kind of know what the intentions are for the friendly.
Yeah,
There's a lot of the similar players from Tuesday, then you got to ask what's happening to the other guys and things like that, and that's what's going to be interesting.
I think the lineup for both teams is quite important, which actually leads me on to my next kind of segue, I suppose, and talking point. Would you rather Spurs go strong or weak with the lineup? You're talking about us taking some of our bigger players to Kenilworth Road to play Luton in front of fans. Thomas Frank said it'll be like quite an even like squad that isn't really based on too much. He didn't give too much away, but he says it's going to be an evenly split squad.
Mm, I kind of expect it's because our game's played at your ground, training ground. I expect you to play a few fringe first teamers that kind of maybe subs bench, teeter on maybe a couple of like mainstays, and then a mixture of your youth team. That's kind of what I expect, and I'd
Mm.
be happy with that. I think we'll learn bits if you went full first team. I think we'd learn stuff, but then I don't think we'd get what we want from the game. Um, and I think that's probably, especially with you having 2 games in one day, I think that's probably been discussed on the premise of setting this up in this way is that actually this is going to be mutually beneficial for both of us. So I think that's probably what they're going to go for if I'm reading it right.
Okay. If we do field a strong 11, and I agree with you, I don't think it will be the case. It will be like our close to best 11. I don't think it'll be the case. How do you think you would cope? Do you think you'd be able to manage it, or do you just think it wouldn't be right?
Well, it'd be a good marker for us because, as I say, we played a full strength Brighton in our first game, and that was when we were about a week and a half into pre-season training, and we lost 6-1. So, uh, you know, it'd be a good marker for us to kind of see where we're at. I'd expect us to lose if you were to play that that level. There's a reason you're playing in the Premier League. But it'd be good for us to have a go. That's what we'd want.
Okay. Any Spurs players you would fear if they played, like ones that you think could cause you the most problem? You speak about like Son, that you like him. Do you think he would cause you the most problems, or would it be someone else?
I think any Premier League, any player playing in the Premier League is going to cause a League One team an issue. You look at Richarlison, things like that. Any one of them is going to cause a problem. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Any Spurs players you'd like to see in this game? Maybe like to see live.
Um. Oh, I don't know. I mean, with it, it's an interesting one. When we played Brighton a couple of days after we signed their youth team captain, so if we were going to sign anyone, um, maybe it'd be nice for them to feature, and then then we sign them a couple of days later, and we go, oh, he was good. So, but I don't know who. I don't think there's
No.
anyone in particular. As I say, for us, it's just making sure we're ready for Bradford. So that's all I care about.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That's got to be the priority. Any of your players do you think that could hurt us the most? Would it be Kone?
If he plays,
Yeah,
if
if he
he
plays.
plays.
Yeah.
I think it's we had a lad called Junior who plays on the right wing for us or plays on any wing actually um, who is very fast, creative player, and I think if he's back and he's fit, he'll be very good. So yeah, I'd be excited to see him. But yeah, I think him or Kone definitely. If we see Bradley Fink, who we signed from Basel as well, he's a 6'4", reminds me of a slightly smaller Peter Crouch in terms of how he approaches things up front. So be interesting to see how he does, but we don't know too much about him to know whether he's going to cause you any problems or not.
Oh, might be able to find out in this game. We've touched on it again about the lineup, but how do you think? You spoke about what you want, but how do you think that your lineup will it be experimental or close to your first 11? And also, are there any players that you want to see get minutes? Again, I'm thinking about younger players.
Yeah, we've got a lot of we've got quite a relatively large first team side, so we're looking to kind of keep it around 25 players. So I think I would want to see any one of the sorry, I would want to see anyone that didn't play on Tuesday, really. I think it'd be nice, maybe a couple of those that did play on Tuesday. Um, we believe that we've also got Michael Rosiak from Arsenal on trial with us. He's been released from Arsenal and very highly touted, supposed to be a
Mm.
championship standard. So if he does play, it'd be very intriguing to see him and whether he does sign for us or not. Um, yeah, as long as we've got that kind of mix, as I say, match sharpness is key for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Would you rather lose with a great performance or nick a scrappy win where you haven't played very well?
Performance is key for me, so I'd rather lose and but play well. As I say, the results aren't important this time of year, is it? Really is. They don't count for anything. As long as we played well, we look promising, and it gives the lads confidence ahead of the season. That's what matters, isn't it?
It's a big part, I think, confidence as well as ability. Would a strong performance against a Premier League side like Spurs give you more belief heading into the season? It's got to, hasn't it?
Yeah, of course. Anything like this, it's all about giving the lads confidence, making sure they're playing well together, doing the right things. Yeah, but as you say, it's I expect you to play a mix of players, so we're that. I think the professionality, especially further down the leagues, has changed over the years. Whereas it's not like as much of a giant killing anymore as maybe it used to be in terms of because everyone's got the a good level of professionalism about them. Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting.
You said performance is more important than the score, but if you had to give a score prediction, what would it be? You go with your head, you go with your heart.
Do you know what? Bearing in mind you've got, as I say, we were kind of expecting a mix. Get a good draw, like a good score draw, 2-2, something like that. I'll be happy with that.
A big result, I think, for you. Absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you.
What are
Nice.
you
Thank you
looking
very
for?
much.
What's your score prediction?
Um, I think a draw as well because I think I agree with you. I think we'd take the big guns in terms of I think your Romero's, your Van der Ven's probably to Luton, and I think you'll put up a really good fight. I think you'll be probably I don't know necessarily fitter, maybe because you play more games, but I think you'll have a maybe better idea of tactics, having been a little bit further into your pre-season. So I think that you'll maybe shock us a little bit and maybe shock Thomas Frank a little bit. So I'm thinking I had in my head 1-1 because I think I can't say there's not been any goals in it. So I actually agree with you about the draw. But we'd probably, of course, want to win. We'd want to. I don't know who would play in that game. If you talk about fringe players, and maybe someone like a Mikey Moore, like a Jamie Donnelly, like a Lancashire, players like that would be really interesting to see. And
Yeah.
then maybe a couple of first teamers embedded to see how they cope. Because that's the thing at Spurs. In the past, forget Thomas Frank a minute, we've done it the wrong way, in my opinion. We've played like the full first team, not just pre-season, any like friendly or any cup game, let's say FA Cup, Carabao Cup, against a smaller team. We'd play the first 11, or we'd just play all the kids. What I'd want to see is the first 11 with a couple of kids embedded and see how they get on. We don't. We just play all the kids at once. So we don't. It's hard to know like how they do in the first team. That's the problem. And we've never done that very well. But hey ho, that's what I
Yeah,
think.
that's a fair comment to make. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think especially one thing, you've been proud of for many years is your academy is fantastic in building players up.
Mm,
And that first team experience is always huge. Being in and around that first team environment and dealing with the level of professionalism that a lot of those first team players have and give, it gives hell of a lot of experience. So you're right, rather than being around each other and you're all in the same kind of mentality and approach to things, actually, it does bring on and mature a player quite quickly if they're in that environment with players that have been in that place for years.
good point. Before we wrap up, Dan, I want to go over some Wycombe memories for you and end of season predictions. We'll start with like memories and identity, I suppose. Firstly,
Mm.
what's your earliest or favourite memory supporting Wycombe Wanderers?
My earliest is when I first went. So 25th of January 1997, we played York City and we beat them 3-1. So that was my first memory. But my dad worked behind the scenes, so I was quite lucky to be able to kind of go and sit in every Saturday
Ah,
um,
nice.
in the back offices and used to help out as well, go hand out programs in the executive boxes and things like that before the games and stuff. And then I was a ball boy, so I've kind of been in and around the club from very young. But yeah, it's that's kind of going back to that community element and what's really important from that perspective. It's always really good. So yeah, earliest memory is the first one really, but yeah, always watching the scores from when I was younger on teletext. As I say, I'm old enough to remember that as well.
Love it. I mean, suppose you've answered this question. I was going to ask you, what does Wycombe Wanderers mean to you personally? I mean, you've talked about it, like that sense of community.
Oh, massively, massively, yeah, and that's it. It's very much a passion of mine. And as I say, that's why I've kind of always got involved as I have, and it's one way it's been in and around my life. My great grandfather played for him, and or two of my great grandfathers played for him. I've got their medals upstairs in my bedroom from when they won like league league cups and district cups and all that kind of stuff. So
Wow.
it's been embedded within my family for years, and I think I've always been a big fan of lower league football as well. So not necessarily, you get a lot of people going, "Oh, you haven't won a trophy for years." Well, when we do, it's going to be amazing. It'll be special. So that's what it feels. I love this level of football, and
Mm,
kind of being with the club from a grassroots perspective. I just think it's brilliant.
that's nice. It's a really nice story, Dan. Who's your all-time favourite Wycombe player and why?
And that's put me on the spot. I'll probably get. Do you know what? Been asked this question many times before, and I probably give a different answer every time I ask.
That's all
I'm
right.
asked it. That we had a midfielder back in the 90s called Dave Carroll, who was a consistently fantastic player, and I have no doubt. I don't know why he could have played Premier League. He was absolutely phenomenal player. Just always very good and very consistent for us. Ended up playing hundreds of games for us over his career. And just he came up, signed with us in the late 80s from a side called Roycelip Manor for a few £1,000 and ended up finishing with us playing in FA Cup semi-finals and that kind of stuff. So you think, that level of trajectory, it's he was known as Jesus by our fans, so that kind of tells you how high regard we held him.
That's the thing, and loyalty for me is so important. You get a big money move to another club, whether it be in that case a Premier League club. It would have been, of course, as much then. I totally understand and respect that. But just the loyalty you get for staying at one club, and we got it like Premier League, whether it be Alexander Arnold staying at Liverpool, whoever it might be. Like
Mm.
you always will be valued when you stay at one club for either your whole career or such a long time. Look at Son. I mean, he's not been here all his career, but an awfully long time. That's where he's gained that legendary status and that
Yes.
respect among fans. You know, they put the club first before themselves. And like he turned down, for example, come out this week from loads of different sources, like the Mail Sport, Fabrizio Romano, and others, that Son turned down I think 4 or 5 year contract where he would have earned £25 million a year. So that just tells you all you need to know.
Mm.
It would have been so much more than he's on at Spurs, but you put the club and the fans and the whole loyalty perspective first. Big, big thing.
It's absolutely massive.
Really important. Bit of a deeper question, I suppose. Here again, don't worry if you can't answer it. But what's the long-term goal, I suppose, or dream for you? Is it to get back into the Championship and become like a stable outfit and not have to worry about fighting for survival? Or is it eventually like the Premier League? Where does it kind of stem?
Well, I can give you the owner's goals. So the owner's goal, short-term goals, is to become a sustainable championship side.
Right,
They've said within about 10 years or so they want to become a Premier League side. So that's the
wow,
ambition of the club.
that's good.
Um, well, that's what they said when they came in anyway. Um, I I'd love to see us in the Premier League. I just hope we retain our identity in the process. That's
Yeah, so
what's the
important.
most important thing for me out of
Mm,
anything. Um, I don't want to speak derogatory of them, but if you see Wrexham's climb, they've got a mainstay of 4,000 fans that are stuck with them in the National League days, and they're in the Championship now. They're filling out the stadium every week, which is great, and they have retained that element of community within the town. There's a lot of bandwagoners on there as well. And I know with a story like ours, if we were to become a Premier League side, you would get those bandwagoners who, as soon as we started, if we
mm.
dropped back down again, they'd just be gone straight away. And I think, as long as we retain that element of community and retain that, that close knit feel, that's the most important thing for me out of anything. But I would love to see us in the Premier League.
You do lose that, don't you, when you go to the Premier League? In particular, you get to the Premier
Mm.
League, and let's say you stay there for a season, and it's like, oh my god, it's a disgrace that we're going down, and you know, it's just like you just get caught up in the emotion, and everything else is also a disgrace. I mean, a great example is in Luton Town, I suppose, and some would argue Rob Elders was given a lot of time, but just seen as a hero not that long ago to get them into the Premier League, and now he's seen as a guy that nearly took them down to back to League One. Obviously, are back in League One now, but he was
Yeah.
dismissed before that was confirmed that it was him. So just how things can change so quickly in football. Luton, everything was like, oh, okay, they're financially stable in the Premier League, and now they're back in League One, different manager, and not really too much to look forward to. So I know he's
Well,
just Premier League can change a lot perspective
you
on
say
things.
that, but they're in League One and they've just received a parachute payment of around 38 million. So I mean,
That's the
they're
thing,
not doing
but
too bad, are they?
no, that is true. But I did speak to a couple of Luton fans here on the channel ahead of the weekend, and I got the impression it was a bit more doom and gloom. They're not happy about the amount of money that's been spent,
Mm.
like regarding the parachute payment. They don't think it's been spent, or certainly spent in the right way. But no, you're right. That parachute payment is there to help. That's where the clubs spend it. But let's end with some end of season predictions then. Go on, put you on the spot again. Where will Wycombe finish in the league?
Right. So if I go on my here as a HB12 prediction, because we've already done our predictions for the season, I've put us as
Ah,
second. Put us as
okay,
second. I reckon we'll
nice,
go up. Um, it is all dependent on how we start, whether Dodds does exactly what he needs to do from a tactical perspective. But I'm going to go optimist. I reckon we'll be up there, and let's go for it. Playing the championship
nice.
next season.
Love that. Love the optimism. It's what football's about. You can't go into the season being negative. What do you achieve from that?
Exactly.
Where do you think my club, Tottenham, will finish in the Premier League, if you had to say honestly?
I am going to put Frank to have a good first season. I think you'll finish sixth. I'm going to go with sixth. I don't know whether that would be a level of success for you, but I think based on how you were last season
Mm,
and the fact as well, Premier League sides at the moment seem to have gone through a shift where they don't go through, like we've had 9 new signings. I don't see Premier League's teams kind of making mass wholesale load of changes. So you might not have that as much. I think you've got a mentality shift, as I say. So whether that's implemented quick enough, I think Liverpool seem to just be going on strength by strength with the players that they're bringing in, things like that. And I think they'll be too strong again. And I think Man City have got a point to prove. And I think they'll be, doing what they can. Although I think Pep maybe is kind of overstayed his welcome a bit there, but that remains to be seen. And then your noisy neighbours as well seem to want to do something as well. So I don't know whether they'll have a good one or not, but yeah, I think 6 is a good one considering, and I think a strong Champions League performance as well, because I think the new format, I really do like the new Champions League format,
Yeah,
but
I was going to ask you.
I think you'll get through to the knockouts. But it'd be interesting to see how far you go on that one. If you come up against a PSG or something like that early, then I think it's a bit of a worry, isn't it?
A big worry. But on you said there about the league kind of position and form, I suppose. I do agree with you. I just don't think the top four is realistic. And you mentioned you're absolutely right. Liverpool strength to strength, and some of the signs they're making, for example, signing striker Hugo Ekitike, and apparently they want Isak now as well, on top of
Yeah.
Kirkes and Wirtz and all these players that they're signing. Arsenal, I hate to say it, but second, and really spending the money now. Grokeres, Manweke, they're signing players here, there, and everywhere, and they're looking to do more. Still in contact for Eze, which does concern me. City, as you say, point to prove. 8-0, really good bit of business. So, and Chelsea as well. We're getting deals done here, there, and everywhere.
Oh, you can't miss out Chelsea, can you? Actually, it's
No,
an odd one because you always see Chelsea kind of sometimes fail a bit, and then they always kind of sneak up at the end. But they
they
made some
do, don't
really
they?
good signings, and obviously you can't discount
Yeah,
their
they do
winning the
worry
cup.
me.
Yeah, so there's a lot of good players and a lot of good teams in the mix. I mean, even if you look at last season, I don't know whether it'll be a one season thing, but look at even your Fulhams, your Brightons, your Bournemouths, even your Forests as well. Whether they'll have another good season or whether they'll
But
be back down there again. You've got all these clubs that actually Villa as well. They'll be looking to be up there. It's a tight league, and it's hard. So you got to come out running, haven't you? Really.
you have. If I had to say one club to surprise people, I'd probably say Everton under David Moyes.
Yeah.
Starting the season off, new stadium. I just see something about it that they can push on for like top 10 or outside of Europe, maybe just about.
Well, they pushed on, didn't they? They pushed on towards the end of last season. I think Moyes is a stable appointment for them. I think, Dyche is always going to kind of get you to a certain level, but Moyes always seems to kind of come up trumps, doesn't he? I mean, he did it at West
Mm,
Ham
it
for
did.
the years. He obviously did it at Everton back in the day. So yeah, I think you're probably right. They might have that new stadium bounce if it all goes well, but yeah, they've kind of very much underachieved over the last few years, haven't they?
You certainly have. Dan, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you today. Again, thank you for giving me your time. Really do share. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks for talking to me. Remind people, what you do and where people can find you across social media. Talk to people about the podcast you're involved in and all the work that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow me on Twitter at Dan Clark PR. I do talk all sorts of things, football, all levels, but mainly about Wycombe. So if you do have a little bit of interest about Wycombe, then yeah, follow me. That's fine. Um, as I say, I'm also board director for the Supporters Trust. So we own 10% of the club, and obviously kind of involved in that from a fan's perspective and all that kind of stuff. So that's exciting. Chat weekly on the Heroes of HB12 podcast. Very nice format between the four of us, Michael, Adam and Damo and myself. Just chat weekly on what's going on, some wider topics as well, things like that. So growing very nicely and got a good fan base behind us, so that's always quite nice. And then
Good.
yeah, part of the 1887 fan group as well, where we're getting flags and donations raised for flags out there and stuff like that. So yeah, right mix of things. But yeah, drop us a follow if you're interested about us anyway.
Yeah,
Hopefully my insights today have given you a bit more of a soft spot for us anyway.
they have. They've definitely. I mean, I've always enjoyed the interviews I've done with people. This has definitely been one of the better ones, Dan. So thank you very much. And
Thanks very
all those
much.
things you say, very different, but all very incredible in their own way and all very unique and just incredibly important. So, well done for the work that you do. Keep up the amazing work and thanks for joining me. If you want to follow me, you can at Harry Scarfe 22 across all socials. Most importantly, check Dan out, like and subscribe to the channel If you're new, if you're listening on a podcast platform, please do drop us a follow and a 5-star review. And also check out our sponsors in the Kitman. Should have said that at the start, ahead of the new season. And thank you very much. Check out all the content we've got. So 2 games this weekend. So there'll be double the content, I suppose. So do check out that one. But big thanks to Dan for joining me today. Up the Spurs.